Welcome to AutoComplete, Episode 6. This is Roadshow's weekly podcast about the latest news in cars and the technology inside of them. I'm Brian Cooley, editor-at-large for Roadshow, joined by Tim Stevens, our editor-in-chief. And Tim, we're on the cusp of sending a whole bunch of our team to the Geneva Auto Show, where, among other things, we're going to see that hot new Lexus, the LC500, arriving with supposedly a hot new hybrid powertrain as well.
Right. In fact, we've got Wayne Cunningham's in Europe right now checking out the car a little early before the show, getting a bit of a sneak preview. It's an interesting proposition. Of course, they unveiled the non-hybrid version in Detroit, which is one of the sexier-looking cars of the show. Now they're showing us the hybrid-powered version. It's down about 100 horsepower over the normal version. I think we're talking about 350 horsepower, thereabouts. And it's got a very interesting setup for it. It's a plug-in hybrid. We're hoping somewhere north of 30 miles per gallon, probably closer to 40. But also, it's got a very interesting transmission setup. It's got both a CVT and a 4-speed automatic, which is a bit of an odd combination. Where in theory, they've added the 4-speed automatic to give a little bit better feel for drivers in theory. But I don't think there are too many drivers who are in favor of CVTs, and 4-speed automatics feel a little bit dated too. To bring the two together, I don't know. It sounds like an interesting mix.
Yeah, that we've never seen before. I can't remember another car, except maybe Chevy would argue the Volt, that has two transmissions inside of it.
Right.
This is an odd bird. And of course, CVTs, like you mentioned, they get a bad rap in a lot of places, sometimes deservedly, sometimes not. So this is a strange mix, almost more interesting in its transmission than its actual power. So as Tim mentions, we got Wayne getting an early look at that, and our Geneva coverage will have more details on what many, including Antoine Goodwin, thought was just about the most stunning car we've seen so far in the early road circuit at Detroit, where this car first came out. So this could be a stunner with some really impressive tech under its body as well. We'll have no doubt that that'll be the case with a couple of BMWs we're looking for at Geneva. The M badge coming to the 7 for, I believe, the first time with the M760Li. That's a lot of alphabet.
And to continue the numbers and letters, we've got a V12, 600 horsepower, less than 4 seconds, 0 to 60 for what is a massive car. We were out there testing the 7 Series not that long ago. This is a very big luxury car, and to get that thing to 60 in 3.9 seconds is quite impressive. So that's interesting for sure. But they're also going to be bringing a performance aspect to the hybrid versions with the, let's see what they're calling it, the 740E and the LE, the long wheelbase for the LE, but they're bringing an iPerformance badge to those, basically adding a little bit more juice on the plug-in hybrid version of that car. So if you want your economy, your efficiency, and also some performance, you can have your cake and eat it too, I guess.
Yeah, 740E is going to be an interesting package. So you've got a full-size 7, or the L stretch, like you mentioned, which really kind of stretches the concept. But as I understand it, this is a twin-power turbo 4-cylinder backed up by the hybrid electric motor. That's an amazing thing to do in a car that has always stood for more and maximum and as many cylinders and pounds and horsepower as you can get. Supposedly 25 miles of pure electric range, which, most car makers will argue puts you pretty close to driving all electric during your regular commute driving, at least in the U.S. They say that they've wedged the battery well under the back seat, which is kind of the new state of the art to make sure it's not going to create any higher floor, which can make the cabin cramped, or intrude in the trunk, which in a big car like that, you can't fool with the trunk. If you've got an IS or something, it doesn't really matter. But on a big 4-seat Luxo barge like that, people buy them so they can, put 4 people and all their stuff in there for a trip. Turbo 4, that's wild.
Right, and this will be the first time that they're going to be bringing the I-badge to a gasoline-powered car. They've got the i8, of course, which is the hybrid, and also the i3. But they're going to be bringing this iPerformance badge here, basically to tie the link between their performance-oriented EVs and the plug-in hybrid, the i8. But they're bringing that onto a normal car, quote-unquote normal car, for the first time. So it's an interesting proposition here, a performance-oriented hybrid car, a giant luxury hybrid car at that. I'm interested in seeing a little bit more about that as we get into the show.
Yeah, it's a little odd to put the eye badge on something that doesn't look weird. I mean, the eyes so far, right? The consumer knows the i3, it looks odd, like something out of a Woody Allen movie, and the i8 looks like something out of Star Wars. And then you suddenly start to, some would say, water down the sexiness of i by slapping it on a mainstream car, but that's probably where it has to go as they keep trying to build the i DNA into volume cars.
Absolutely.
Non-volume car would be a new Aston Martin we look to see at the show. And this one is going to be interesting because Aston says the new DB11 is going to be the first refresh of their line since the rebirth of the company 12 some odd years ago. Supposed to spec and appear quite different. I'm the first one to admit Astons all look the same to me, except for the Rapide, and they all start with the same three letters or the same two. They're all Vantage, Vanquish, VA something.
Right. The DB9, which was Fisker design, of course, dates back to 2003. So it's been a really long time coming to bring this new generation DB to market. There was a picture which leaked onto the internet this week, and it looks quite good. I think it's basically a bit more of a throwback to the traditional DBs, the DB5 in particular. I think it looks quite a bit like, in the nose anyway, which is all that I've seen so far. But yes, it's going to be powered by a smaller, reduced displacement V12, of course, with turbocharging, which is the way things go these days. But there'll be an all-new electronic system within the car, which is sourced from Mercedes-Benz, I believe it is. So that's going to give them a lot more smarts internally, which is something that they have desperately needed for a long time now. The loss of the giant V12 is a bit of a sad thing, but definitely, as you mentioned, that they've needed a bit of a new design language and some help on the electronic side of things too. So I'm looking forward to seeing this. Again, it should be one of the biggest cars of the show.
The DB11 with new powertrains, new electronics from Mercedes as well, and of course still a lot of high-tech bonded aluminum structure to keep it light and stiff and all of that. Aston Martin may also be pursuing, not necessarily at Geneva, but talking about it a lot there, their first electric car. Now, you know that the Rapide is their four-door Panamera-style four-door coupe. They will keep the name, but make the E at the end a capital E, so I guess you'd call that the Rapid E, is a prospective vehicle that's going to be perhaps built in conjunction with Li Eco, which is the same Chinese company that may power the underpinnings of the Faraday supercar we saw at CES. So this is a weird kind of triple bedfellows.
Right, and I knew something was up when there were a lot of Aston Martin people hanging around at the Faraday Future event at CES. So I knew something was going on there. And then, of course, they also announced an LETV partnership at CES, but that was just on the infotainment in-car media services kind of side of things. Now, obviously taking that to another level. With a fully electric Rapide. The Rapide S is actually a very nice car. Obviously, it's a bit of a different Aston Martin. It's a big four-door, a beautiful four-door car. But to go electric, it will be an interesting proposition. Aston Martin is all about the emotion of driving, and a big part of that, of course, is a screaming V12. So to go with an electric is going to take, it's going to be an interesting mix to see if they can find a way to bring that emotion without the sound, but certainly having a lot of torque and a lot of power may silence a lot of critics. We'll see.
Yeah, they're bound to have a fairly good team working on the acoustics to create some kind of a synthetic engine sound, which, we're seeing a little bit in cars already, especially as fairly performance cars may have a four-cylinder option. They may pipe in a little more engine sound and or add some synthetic recorded engine sound that responds to throttle. We're getting into this odd era of scripting cars' sounds because they're having less of them as they become more electrified. So I guess every company is going to have their signature roar, and now it'll be an MP3 instead of an actual engine. Who thought it would come to this?
We'll see.
Yeah. Now, Volvo has got something odd coming up after Geneva at the Mobile World Congress. Mobile World Congress is the biggest mobile technology show in the world. It's held in Barcelona, Spain every year. It's a lot about phones, tablets, wireless carriers, and increasingly in the last couple of years, a little bit of automotive news leaks in there as cars become connected. So Volvo is going to use that stage to talk about what they say will be the first keyless car. Not a car that has a keyless entry pad like a Ford or a car that has a remote key fob, but a car that actually doesn't come with a key unless you actually request one optionally. It's all smartphone based, using Bluetooth, not cloud, to get greater reliability. And this is one of those things that, polarizes people. They either say, why don't we have keyless cars? Why are we still carrying keys? Or they go the other way and say, I would never want the fussiness and fallibility and battery charge concerns of my phone to stand between me and being able to get in my damn car.
Right, and as tech forward and progressive as I like to think that I am, I'm definitely in the second camp there at this point anyway. I've certainly had my cell phone battery die on me, and that's not something that I would want to prevent me from getting in the car, at least unless there was a USB cable dangling out from the wheel well or something like that that I could plug my phone into if it did happen to die. But yeah, the idea basically is you can control your car directly from your phone, again within Bluetooth range, so you'd probably look for 20 to 30 feet, about the same as a typical wireless key at this point. It's an interesting idea. The fact that you can still get a key is good. I wonder if this this isn't just an opportunity for Volvo to charge you a little bit more money for another option. Who knows? But it is the kind of thing that I think a lot of people are going to be looking forward to, and we're seeing something similar in the Chevy Bolt anyway, with them using Bluetooth Low Energy within that car to do the same kind of thing to basically identify and authenticate the driver of the car. I think that car will still have a traditional key, but in 2017, anyway, there's one less thing to worry about carrying around and one less thing to lose, maybe, if you drive a Volvo.
Yeah, I think Volvo says they will have this on the market in, I believe, calendar 2017. So it may list as a 2018 model, but either way, it's not happening this year. But they say it's imminent and for sure. And an interesting quote from one of their execs around this was not just about convenience and high-tech forwardness, but they say this has the potential to completely change how a Volvo can be accessed and shared instead of sitting idle and parking for its entire life. So they obviously are trying to do what everyone else is doing, trying to move into mobility solutions by saying we've got a car that has at least this little slice of it, helping to enable the idea that, yeah, you can use my car, let me just authorize you on my phone, and suddenly your Volvo app operates my car until I then decide to revoke it later. So for friends, family, who knows, people that want to come do a car wash or a detail while you're at your office, you can say, yeah, go ahead and take my car for a couple hours. I'm gonna authorize you now. It's interesting in that respect.
And Volvo's played around with this kind of thing before. They actually had the ability to allow someone to deliver groceries into your trunk for a test in Sweden, for example. So that's kind of a similar concept where you could unlock just the trunk of the car with a smartphone. And that was, I think, about a year or two ago, they did that as a pilot program. So they've been playing around with this idea for a while now, and it's good to see them taking it worldwide anyway. But yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what the uptake is and how many people do check the box to get an extra key on there, even if they don't need it.
A couple quick ones here before we take a break. There is some speculation, anyway, a New York Times piece we saw this week that buybacks of at least some of the Dieselgate VWs are looking to be nearly inevitable. And we're also seeing an interesting and ominous drumbeat this week from I believe it's an unnamed inside source at Volkswagen, but picked up by a lot of the financial press that at the time, CEO of Volkswagen, Martin Winterkorn, this person on the inside says he absolutely knew about the defeat device, and as early 2014, which goes not anywhere near to the beginning of its supposed use, but certainly far enough back that it wasn't sort of two ships passing in the night. Early 2014 is going way back in this one. So that's kind of where things are on that investigation. I know a lot of people ask, where do things stand on the recall? As of this morning, there is no response from California Air Resources Board or the EPA on a response to VW's latest proposed fix. The time on that, I believe, runs out on the 23rd, so we're only a few days away as of today's taping, by which point the regulators need to give VW some kind of a response as to whether the latest proposed fix, which we don't know what it is, it's just a black box right now in their documents, is accepted or not. So we'll stay on top of that because we know we have a lot of VW and some Audi owners out there who are affected. When we come back, Tim's got highlights for us from what's going on right now at Roadshow, and we're also going to detail you on another issue of cars being called back. This one for any of you who have the latest Honda Civic. That and more when AutoComplete continues. Back to AutoComplete, Episode 6. I'm Brian Cooley, Editor-at-Large at Roadshow, joined by our Editor-in-Chief, Tim Stevens. What's going on at the site that people should know about this week, Tim?
We got a lot of first takes. In fact, Emmy has been very busy this week. She drove both the new BMW M2, which is their high-performance, smaller car, kind of filling the niche that the M3 has moved out of as that thing's gotten bigger. She's also driven the X4 M40i, which is the new performance version of the X4, and the convertible Mini Cooper. So all those from Emmy this week if you want to. And she's also at the Daytona 500 this weekend, so look forward to some coverage coming out of that event. I did the Lamborghini Huracan Spider in the rain, but it was still a great test, so I've got my impressions of that car up there as well. And we should have a new-ish episode, that is, of Roadshow Rivals, where we test three-row luxury SUVs against each other. We've got the Acura MDX, the Audi Q7, and one of our favorites, the Volvo XC90. So an interesting comparison test there that'll be online probably by the time you see this video. So check all that out. And, of course, we're working up to MWC and Geneva News as well.
Okay, a lot going on. That's theroadshow.com. And if you haven't discovered it yet, we're only a couple of months old. It's CNET's massive new automotive site. Everything from the passion of cars, the technology in them, and the latest in automotive news, like we're covering right here on the Roadshow podcast. Let's get back into it. We did have an email from one of our viewers last week. Thank you for catching on this. We failed to mention the, not yet a recall, but it is a stop sale, which is pretty dramatic in the business, of 2016 Honda Civics with a 2-liter 4, because this engine, apparently some of them can have a part inside of the cylinder that connects the connecting rod to the piston, a little ring, probably about a 30-cent part, but apparently was not snapped on tightly enough in assembly, and it can cause the piston and rod connection to get sloppy, and that can just tear your engine apart. This connection right here, this is where the connecting rod, which connects the piston up here to the crankshaft below it, and then you've got this pin, this big sort of tube that goes between the rod and the piston, and then you snap that together with that little ring you see on the left. That's the part that apparently may not be installed properly, and that causes the whole assembly to get sloppy, and that's catastrophic. So they're not recalling the cars. As of this morning, there is no official recall on the NHTSA recall site, which, by the way, is safercar.gov if you want to monitor recalls on this car or any other car. And yet it is a full-on stop sale. In fact, the actual document that they've got over here from CivicX website, they have this service bulletin that comes up from Honda dealers, and it simply says, we're not selling. This is per inspection. Warranty information is coming, but right now these cars are waiting for a fix. They're not selling new ones. If you're driving one right now, I wish I had better news for you. They don't have like a loaner program that I know of. If you hear of this as an owner, let us know. You can send email to me. It's brianc@cnet.com, and tell us what you're learning at the Honda dealers about how they're dealing with the entire fleet of 16 Civics with a 2-liter 4 having a potentially self-destructive engine. Let's do some Tesla news.
There will be a recall for the public in March at some point. That's the word on the street anyway. So you're going to wait a little bit longer for that. And it's not like your engine should really, blow into pieces. It was probably going to be causing additional wear within your engine if indeed you are missing this part. But it shouldn't go flying apart. Shouldn't start, shouldn't catch fire. Shouldn't do anything hugely dangerous. But it certainly is not very good for the health of your engine in the long term. So something that you are going to you're going to want to get that taken care of as soon as you do hear anything from your dealers.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably, if it does come apart, you're probably looking at them putting a new engine in your car for wear reasons. I mean, once that pin starts to drag up and down the cylinder wall, that's not going to be a pretty sound.
Nope, that's sparks coming out of the exhaust, and you don't want that.
I do not want to hear that, no. Some Tesla news. The summon feature that lets you have the car come out of its parking space and come to you. I wondered about this. It sounded awfully libertine, and now it turns out that they are apparently going to change it and give it a dead man switch logic, which I didn't know it didn't have, which is also shocking.
That was actually surprising. So this is actually bringing it more in line with the options that Mercedes-Benz and BMW have, where you need to be forming some kind of action with the Mercedes. You need to be spinning your thumb in a circle on the smartphone app to keep the car backing up. With Tesla, you basically hit the button, and then at that point, you could put your phone in your pocket, and the car would back itself up automatically. And there was a stop button on there if you needed to stop it. But if you've already locked your phone, if you put it in your pocket, or if you drop your phone, obviously it's going to be a little bit difficult to reach for that button. Now it sounds like what you have to do is actually hold your finger on the button to make the car continue to back up and summon itself to you, which is probably the way it should have been. And this is, I think, in the case of Tesla, being a little bit loose in their interpretation of what is safe and what is not safe. Same thing I think you could say with the idea of their autonomous functionality with the car that can drive on the highway. It will chime at you after about 15 seconds if you take your hands off the wheel, but you can actually go in the options and turn that off, which is something that is unique to Tesla as far as I know.
Yeah, they have amazing cheek with how they bring these things to market. I got to give it to them. They just say, look, unless it's specifically prohibited by law, and the law's trying to catch up with all this stuff, or regulations are, we're just going to go ahead and do it. So yeah, this one kind of surprised me. I couldn't believe that it wasn't. Yeah, I couldn't believe it wasn't already a dead man switch. That's pretty shocking. The Model 3, of course, is a much more important story. This is the car that will make or break Tesla in the minds of many, certainly who watch it from a financial point of view. The S and the X are in about the same level of relatively unaffordable cars to the average person, of course. I mean, these are $80,000 to $100,000 cars, typically. The Model 3 is supposed to be a BMW 3 Series competitor. So the word now is that Elon Musk is going to open the doors for pre-orders on the Model 3, and also have more details on it as well the day before they crank open formal pre-orders on the Model X. So they're actually rushing the 3 by just a day to almost get in line ahead of the Model X, even though the Model X has been trickling out in production. This is their make or break car, and I think it's the one that will really speak to some degree of regular people. But the question is, who's going to cross shop it? It's not going to attract Leaf buyers. It's too far up the food chain for them. But it's also not going to be a performance status symbol the way the X and the S are.
Right. This is going to be a transitional car for Tesla, if indeed they can bring it to market in the kind of numbers that they need to. This will be a car that, in theory, will start in the mid $30,000 range and offer a 200-mile range in terms of drivability. But again, the big question is how much is it actually going to cost to get that 200 miles? On the Model S and on the Model X, you can pay extra to get extra range. Is that going to be the case in the Model 3? What kind of option packages are there going to be? And ultimately, how much are we looking to spend to get a well-equipped Model 3 that'll do 200 miles? That's the big question. The Chevy Bolt is going to be the only car on the market that, as we know of, that'll be in that same price range for that same range, but that's a very different proposition too. That's more of an economy family car versus this, which would be more of a, BMW 3 Series competitor kind of thing. But at this point, we still have more questions than answers, and I'm hoping we get a lot of answers at whatever happens at the end of March. If it's an event, if it's just a press release, if it's a rendered photo, we have absolutely no idea at this point what to expect. But we have a lot of questions, and I'm looking forward to getting some answers finally.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the car that moves Tesla from losing phenomenal amounts of money to moving toward maybe making $1 one day. Here's one way to have some new revenue coming in. It's from a children's Tesla. This is either the coolest thing ever, or it shows that it's just a whole different world being a kid today. They're working with the folks that make the Red Wagon Radio Flyer. And I was looking at this thing. They have actually a really good video, of course, Tesla's behind it, at the Radio Flyer website. This is one of the most perfectly faithful renditions of a Tesla. It's, a little kid's pedal car size, but of course it's electric, lithium ion, switchable speed ranges, 3 or 6 miles per hour. And in classic Tesla format, you can option a bigger battery for more money.
These things are about $500 you're looking at for a single-seater little Tesla Model S. That's about twice the price of your average Power Wheels, where in fact you can get a Rolls-Royce Phantom Power Wheels for about $350 on Amazon. I was looking around. So this is a bit of a premium for this higher-end little EV, and it only seats one, I noticed. So if you've got a little friend that you want to take along with you, they're going to have to get their own Model S, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've got we can take a quick look at it here. We got a few shots of it here in this video. So if we can go to that screen, you can see it's really faithful. And almost what's amazing to me is you actually charge it in the same port location under a flip-up portion of the taillight. They even got that right.
And I think you can pay an extra $15 for a custom license plate if you like as well.
Oh yeah, and you can get a car cover, and you can get a custom parking reserved for your child's name. I mean, this is pre-training the one percenters right from the beginning. It's kind of amazing to me.
Cruise to preschool in style.
Oh, man. Hello to our Detroit listeners. Story here that's kind of not automotive, almost real estate, but it just gives you some idea how much Google is gobbling up Detroit. They are, according to a report in Crane's Business News there in the Detroit market, they say Google's looking for another 30,000 square foot facility for more R&D. They're looking in Southfield, Farmington Hills, and looking around Troy. They've already got 2 facilities, 90,000 square feet in Farmington Hills, 140,000 in Ann Arbor, and they also intend to use Ann Arbor, the actual city, as a test ground for autonomous vehicles, where you have M City and you have the New Willow Run that GM is going to retool that are sort of closed campus test cities. So Detroit's turning out to be the capital of self-driving test cities almost overnight, and Google loves the place.
This is absolutely very encouraging to see, because as of now, Google's been testing primarily in Southern California and in Nevada, where there isn't a whole lot of weather to speak of. So for them to go to Michigan shows that they are interested in testing their car in all 4 seasons, which has definitely been a big concern and a big doubt of mine. But of course, Google already has a bit of a presence there. Their self-driving car is actually built in Michigan by Roush Industries.
Oh, that's right.
That's where that car comes from. So as of now, they've been building them in Michigan, shipping them to California, but now they can build them in Michigan and take them to wherever Google's new testing facility is. But the M City facility that you mentioned is kind of the premier autonomous car testing facility, and also the premier vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure testing facility in the world right now. So for Google to get closer to that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So very interesting, the moves that are turning what had been a California-centric industry. That's always the imagery you see is self-driving cars tooling around California. Like you say, the weather's great and it's really easy to do. Now getting a little more real world and getting where the heart of the auto industry is in the U.S. as well. Last thing we got for you is a new survey from insurance.com, an insurance brokerage website that many of you know, that looked at applications coming into their site and people saying, yeah, I've got a ticket or 2, and here's the car I drive. What rate can you give me? Well, from that same data, they were able to figure out what's the most ticketed car out there. And let's start with number 5 and do an impromptu top 5 here. Number 5, Chevy Monte Carlo. All right. I don't really see many of those on the road anymore. I mean, those are not currently made. Those are a past model. Number 4, VW Jetta. Number 3, Dodge Charger. Okay, that starts to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Nissan 350Z. That makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the number 1 ticketed car, Tim, is a Lexus ES300.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
How is that possible?
I have no idea. I would have expected maybe a BMW, a sports car of some sort, not a Lexus.
Nope. The least ticketed cars, well, this one you might have seen this one coming. Number 1's a Buick Encore. But then, right after that, a Lexus IS350. Now, I wouldn't expect that either. I'd expect people on an IS350 to be leaning on it pretty hard.
I would have thought so too. Is Prius, I presume, ranks in that top 5 this summer? I would have to think too.
I'm not finding Prius in either list. It's kind of like what Prius haters always say about Priuses. They're just kind of in the middle. They're not this nor that. So anyway, if you're driving an ES300, you're a badass. Just so you know, you're out there flaunting the law all the time. Which we don't encourage here at Roadshow.
Absolutely not. Drive safely.
Absolutely not. Right. Okay, folks, that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed this update. Make sure you stay on top of everything. It's the easiest and best way to do it is theroadshow.com, where all of our news, reviews, and adventures with cars are refreshing several times a day. We'll see you next time we put it all together. For Tim Stevens, I'm Brian Cooley. Thanks for watching AutoComplete.